Welcome to Fix Your Hips, Part 3. Part 1, we talked about tilting and shifting of the hips when we're performing movements, trying to maintain a nice parallel position for the pelvis, parallel to the floor. Part 2, we talked about anteriorly tilting those hips, where those hip bones, instead of driving straight up, maintaining a nice neutral position with the ribs, we start to tilt forward and the lines of the bowl start to go forward. If you haven't watched the other two videos, go watch it, then come back. Today, we're going to add to that in that bowl. Again, we want the neutral, but sometimes in certain movements, and I'm going to demonstrate when it's most prevalent, the front of the hip bone starts to drive kind of back towards the back of the ribs instead of stacked straight up. So this is our posterior pelvic tilt. Now obviously, most of us don't walk around like this, and if you do, fix your stuff, okay? But there are certain scenarios where it actually is quite common, and you may not even be aware that it's happening. And that's why this video is here in front of you today. So listen up. When we're hinging our hips, when we are performing a squat, or when we're at the top of a movement that requires full extension through the body, those are the three most common places where I find posterior pelvic tilting in inappropriate ways becomes an issue. So let's start with hip hinging first. Our ultimate goal in any kind of hip hinge, like a deadlift or initiating a squat, we want our pelvis to be neutral. We want it to be aligned front of the hip, front of the rib, back of the hip, back of the rib. But oftentimes as we're hinging, especially if our hamstrings are a little bit tight, we get to a point where we can't go any further with our hips. So how do we compensate? Is those tight hamstrings start to pull on that pelvis and tuck it up and under, and we continue going down because we think for some reason we have to touch our toes when performing deadlifts. That is not accurate. You don't have to. And it creates this rounding in this lumbar spine, which again, to correct it, as you start to come up, you are now under a load with a rounded lower spine, and you are pulling up with the back first just to get those hips into a correct positioning before you can even really activate those glutes and pull them through. So that is mistake number 1, where posterior pelvic tilting is inappropriate and should not be done. The best way to fix it is just to have that awareness and stop your range of motion before those hips start to fall out and the rounding starts to occur. So as soon as those hips can no longer drive back, the movement stops and you start to pull it back in. Now, for a squat, the most common time when this posterior tilting becomes prevalent is at the bottom of your squat. So a lot of people will start their squat with a nice neutral hip positioning. That's great. And then as they're coming down, they're keeping that neutral position. And then they're like, oh, well, ass to grass. So they tuck their hips up and under, creating, again, this rounding in the low back, which if you're under a load, you're going to have to correct through the low spine first before you can drive through the hips and come all the way up. So the best way to correct that is pay attention to your working range of motion, maybe look in a mirror or watch yourself on camera and find the place, how low can you go before the hips start to tilt and tuck up and under. And I want you to stay right there. There are then mobility drills. Again, we'll put out another video on just lower body mobility drills to help with those hip flexors, help with those hamstrings. But in the meantime, stay within your working range of motion. If you don't want to create extra strain on your spine, you want a healthy, happy spine, stay within your active current range of motion. And then include mobility into your day-to-day so that you can improve that range of motion and you can then go on to get more depth. So the last and third and final phase that I see this posterior tilting occurring is in things like hip thrusts, glute bridges, or even the top of a squat or top of a deadlift. So let's say you're performing a deadlift and you go and you pull and you're like, oh, I gotta get that full extension. And the next thing you know, you're actually arching, you're pressing that pelvic forward, and then again, we have way too much strain on that lumbar spine. We are here instead of loaded straight up and straight down. And some people aren't even aware that they are actually pressing it forward. If they were to take the line from the top of their pelvis bone, it would be dragging back behind them instead of straight up into their ribcage. So if you're squatting, that extra squeeze or thrust at the top is not doing you any good. It is great to come into full extension, but we want to avoid hyperextension. This is not good news, so avoid this at all costs. All of those three things are easy, simple fixes that just a little awareness can overhaul the way those hips move. So I hope you enjoyed this series. If you'd like more series like this, please comment below and let me know. I got you.